can get an approval of this agenda.
Madam.
Madam Chair, I move to adopt the agenda as presented.
I second.
All in favor with a show of hands? Okay. We're going to receive information now. We're going to start with Vokert, please.
Thank you. Let's try it one more time. Madam President, board members, Superintendent Moore, thank you. I'm Glenn Slater with Volkert & Associates, and we're just giving you another update on our facility assessments and going toward the capital improvement program. There should be a PowerPoint presentation. I believe you have a paper copy, if not. Okay. The one that's showing, I believe, was from September. The first slide in the presentation is the 120-day schedule. There's a larger 11 by 17 sheet in front of you as well that shows some dates that we plugged in there for some milestones to hit throughout the 4 months. We've successfully did our MBE DBE forum last week, and I believe we had a very good turnout. We're in the process right now of wrapping up the facility assessments, and we should have a hard copy in your hands before the end of the month. And just combing through all the information that's there to make sure everything is accurate. If you'll skip to the slide for the MBE DBE Professional Services Forum. We held it again October 5th. We had over 60 people in attendance, and we were able to identify over 40 MBE DBE professional firms with varying professional services such as architectural, civil engineering, structural, MEP, geotech, environmental engineering, as well as surveying and traffic analysis. Some of our early facts from our facility assessments and our demographic studies are showing over the past decade the student population has continued to decline. The school system has nearly 38,000 seats, and the current enrollment is just over 26,000. We got a projected enrollment for 2025, a little under 26,000, and by the year 2030, it should be below, or is projected to be below 25,000. I'd like to note also that there are several elementary schools with less than 70% capacity. On the next slide, it's a bar graph showing the overall enrollment of the entire district, showing that almost 38,000 seats on the two bars on the far left and right. 2015, there was a little over 30,000 enrolled. In 2021, we've got a little over 26,000 enrolled and projected to be below 25,000 by the year 2030. Our next slide is the high school enrollment. There's a little over 10,600 capacity, and it's continued to decline from 2017 to 2021, about 1,400 students, which is, we're projecting it to kind of somewhat level off through 25 and 2030, winding up with about 6,500 students by 2030 for the high schools. The middle school, there's a capacity of, overall capacity of the middle schools of almost 7,300, with the enrollment for the middle schools has kind of been somewhat stable throughout the whole time. Through 21, it's actually increased and looks to maintain pretty much even all the way through 2030. For the elementary schools, we've got almost 20,000 seats. It's elementary, if he'll go 3 slides forward, right there. It'll be elementary at the top. Again, we've got almost 20,000 capacity for the elementary school, and the enrollment has dropped from 15,000 down to 12,500 this year, and expecting to maintain about that same level on to 2030. And then our short-term look ahead is we plan to finalize our assessment report and have it to you before the end of the month. We're currently advertising for professional services and expecting to get their statements of qualifications by November 4th. We're trying to schedule the community meetings to get the community's input by the end of the month or early November. And after those meetings, our intent is to formulate the proposed building program for your approval and input. On the next slide, during the same time, we will be reviewing the responses coming in November and going over the professional services firms that have submitted and grading them and making recommendation for your approval to have them in the pool of service providers. Then we'll work toward finalizing the capital plan by the end of the year to hopefully have projects assigned to these services early January and start design January, February of 2022. Once the design gets underway, our intent is to have the building program built out within 4 years. That pretty much wraps up. Do we have any questions?
I think we're making. Okay, we seem to be making great progress. Now if we can get our technology going in here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next we have Mr. Ron Simmons with the River Region United Way, the Bold Goal Initiative.
Good afternoon, Madam President, members of the board. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you today on behalf of River Region United Way. I'm Ron Simmons. I'm the president and CEO of River Region United Way. And many of you know United Way as an organization that primarily over the years have raised millions and millions of dollars for nonprofit agencies within our communities that are doing great things for the folks that are really in need in our communities. United Way services 5 counties: Montgomery, Otaga, Elmore, Lowndes, and Macon County. But today I want to talk to you specifically about Montgomery County and what we call the Bold Goal Initiative. Now, what United Way really does is we work with community partners, and those community partners do include our nonprofit community, faith-based community, our local government community, even the military, and even our business community in order to solve problems. We identify the most critical problems in our communities, and then we identify the resources, and we point those resources toward the problem to solve them. And we're accountable for every dollar we raise, but we're looking for measurable results. One of the things we do every year in order to solve those problems and identify the problems is we create or build what we call a needs assessment, a community needs assessment, and you have that in your packet today. That community need assessment identifies what are the 5 top critical problems within each of our counties. If you look at Montgomery, the number 1 is crime. But around number 4, it says education. And the reason education is not number 1 is because when there's crime today, or if people are hungry today, then that is the most critical problem to them. But one of the things we do once we look at this data, we continue to peel this onion back, we've identified that the reason that these problems are where they are is because there is poverty. It boils down to poverty. Well, why is there poverty? It's primarily because people don't have the financial resources to prepare for their families, and they don't have the financial resources to provide the basic needs, and they haven't qualified for those jobs because of education. And primarily it boils down to reading. So I'm speaking to the Board of Education, and you all are so familiar with the Alabama Literacy Act, where if our children are not reading proficiently by the end of 3rd grade, then they will repeat the 3rd grade. And we want to make sure we're doing everything in our power to prevent that. It's not only just about them not repeating, but about going upstream and solving the problems in order to change what is happening in our communities if we're really going to make a major difference. We can continue to put Band-Aids on the problem, but if we're going to solve them, we've got to get to the root of the problem. The root of the problem is reading. You know that in order to change this, a child learns to read pre-K to 3rd grade, and then they make that leap from learning to read to reading to learn. And if we're going to really change this trajectory that our children are on, we have to make sure that they are reading proficiently. And I believe the only way we can do that is through what we call a bold goal. And a bold goal is exactly what it says. It's a big goal. In fact, it's so big, even if it's assigned to you, you can't do it alone. It's going to take every one of us. It's going to take our entire community in order to solve a bold goal. Our bold goal is to see to it that every one of our children within our community are reading proficiently by the end of 3rd grade. And we do that through what we call collective impact. And that's done through collective effort. That means pulling together all of our resources with a shared vision toward a common goal. And we have all of the answers, well, a lot of the answers anyway. We actually have them at our fingertips. The problem is we're working in silos. Some of the same issues you have in the school systems, when those children leave your school, they're going to many of our agencies and in their after-school care programs. But those children still have domestic violence issues. They still have mental illness issues. They still are hungry, and many of them are still homeless. Those are a few of the problems that are impacting our children's ability to read. Even the ability to, whether they're getting to school or getting there on time. Many of our agencies have the answers. The problem, again, is we're working independently. We're not working together. This Bold Goal Initiative brings about what we call a Bold Goal Coalition. and it's consisted of community partners who would do what they do every day. They won't change their mission. But what they will do is come together as a coalition, as an organization, as a group that is working to move the needle on our third grade reading. And this is very important to our business community because to them, this is a talent development program. And we've been working on this over a year. We worked with and spoke with every superintendent. Had an opportunity to speak with Dr. Moore and some of the board members. We've had an opportunity to speak with every superintendent in our community, every mayor in our community, the city council, the county commission, our business community, and even our military community. And we have a lot who are on board with us. So what I'm asking you today is to join with us as we create this Bold Goal Coalition. I've provided you with a fact sheet on this Bold Goal Coalition and why it's important for us to join and lock arms together in order to make this happen. We're not coming to tell you to do anything. We're actually doing the opposite. We're coming and asking you, where can we help? Where are the gaps? What resources do we have that we can bring to the table? How do we help solve this problem together? So I just want to present this to you today, and if you have any questions at this time, I can take them.
You have a question?
Mr. Simmons, I don't have a question for you, but I appreciate you bringing this opportunity before us because the Literacy Act is real and facts don't lie. And I think that we accomplish more as a team than divided and working in silos. And the United Way is a great organization and does a lot of great things in the community. And I just wanted to thank you for bringing this to our attention.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity. Any other questions?
I'm sorry, I know we're all kind of special with our microphones. Thank you, Mr. Simmons, for the presentation. Do you have a goal in mind as to when this will start being implemented?
Absolutely. So let me kind of give you a brief synopsis of how this works. So many of you probably attended our area leadership forum virtual meeting about a month ago. That was the initial formal launch of the Bold Goal Initiative. Now, the next phase is letters were sent out today, emails were sent out today, where those organizations who are willing to become a part of this coalition, and the only ask is that we will work together. And they will actually sign through DocuSign a document saying that I would like to be a part of that. We call that a letter of commitment. At that point, the next step will be that we will start to form work groups. We call that our working institute. That will be a meeting where we will identify what are the top 5 critical areas that we really want to attack. And then we will form work groups around that with the subject matter experts. And once they identify what that is based on the data, then we will start to identify a timeline on how we will address each of these areas and what resources are going to be required. We've identified some resources already, but it's really going to be once we start to granularize the work groups and what is needed, then we will be more specific, and that will be able to give us more of a timeline. But I will tell you now, a lot of work has been done, so we're already boots on the ground doing a lot of work right now. This is by the way, I'm glad this is another question I want to answer. I want to add to that. This is a sustainable initiative. This is not a program or an event. In fact, it's not a tutoring program. This is how we bring together all of the resources that we can to help solve this problem. So this will continue. This is not something where we say this is a 1 or 2 year program. This is something that will continue. So today we're saying pre-K to 3rd grade, but at some point we're going to have to continue with those when they graduate 3rd grade. How do we continue that, and we measure that along with our community partners? So we're in play right now, and it's, each work group will have different goals, if you will. But our goal is by next year to start moving that needle where we will see a sustainable and a major impact.
And I know that we're all concerned about the children being on reading level when this law takes effect, which was supposed to be last year. Is that right, Dr. Moore?
Correct.
And then it was moved because of COVID. But now I was curious as to know when that was now.
It's actually supposed to come into effect this school year, but the superintendents requested from the an extension because of COVID and the fact that we were out so much and that the kids were not actually at school. So you remember the governor vetoed that, and so now we think it's going to come back up. We're not asking that they delay the assessment piece, just the delay the implementation of the law related to the assessment. So the assessments have been done, right? So it may be delayed. We don't know yet. The governor has vetoed it from last year, but if she changes her mind, because she wanted to see what the latest assessments would look like, and so now we've done those, and she should be able to review those to make a decision about it.
Great. Again, I just want to say thank you for pulling together the resources that we have here in Montgomery. It is so important that we make this commitment to our children because they truly are our future. And it is, again, important that each one of us work together doing what we can with the resources that we have available. Of course, you know that the MPS board, and I think I can speak for all of us, we're committed. We're committed to do whatever it takes to make sure that every child has a quality education.
Thank you so much. United Way, we're committed to pulling all the resources together and making sure that these children have an opportunity to be successful in life. Thank you.
Madam Chair, not to sound redundant, but again, thank you so much, sir, for the data, for the information, and for your presentation. The elephant in the room is that poverty is at the root of many, many, many of our problems. Recognizing that, we understand that it's not going to be just a school problem. So as we pull our partners together, are we looking at taking those resources, assisting the schools, but also going back into the community, working with families to ensure, looking at the adage, teach a man to fish, give him a fish, he'll eat for a day, teach him to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime. We can, as you said, put Band-Aids on a lot of our problems, but are we looking at ways to support schools with those resources, but families as well?
Dr. Coleman, thank you for that question, and I think it's a very, very valid question. The answer is absolutely. That's exactly what the Bold Goal Initiative and this coalition does. We look at where are the gaps. Those gaps could be children that are homeless. Those gaps could be those who are being abused, or as a matter of fact, my wife is a retired teacher, 27 years in the public school system. And one of the things she says is, I wish the parents would help, but now that I work for United Way, I have a different set of lenses. And now my question is, but what if the parents can't help? What if they can't read? We have resources that can help their parents with adult literacy programs that are there. So absolutely, we are looking for where are the gaps? How do we collaborate, sharing data, sharing the information? As a matter of fact, Auburn University Montgomery, Dean of the College of Education, Dr. Austin, she's on our board, and they have already committed to provide certified trainers to train the trainers. In other words, all of our agencies that have these after-school care programs doing great work, but many of them don't know how to teach reading. Well, they will be able to teach reading. This program will allow us to share data so we can identify where are the gaps. So what do they really need to work on? Working with the state Board of Education, with Dr. Moore and her entire team, working with our after-school programs and our agencies that are doing the work, and the frontline people who are working every day in order to make a difference. So yes, said all that to say absolutely, that is what this program is. That's why I was very clear about it's not a reading program. This is a total package that is really designed to make a sustainable difference, even if it's not in the classroom. This is in the classroom and out of the classroom initiative. Thank you. Thank you.
Very, very promising. Thank you, Mr. Simmons.
Thank you, Madam President.
We'll be seeing you again.
Thank you all. Thanks for the opportunity.
Next up, we have Ms. Katrina Jackson on the Salient contract.
Good evening, Superintendent Moore, Madam Secretary, distinguished board members. The first contract I'd like to bring to your attention is the Presence Learning. And in this one, we are requesting that we continue the Presence Learning contract entered into last school year for the purposes of providing an online platform for our school psychometrists to conduct online assessments, and for our occupational therapists and physical therapists and speech therapists to conduct online assessments, observations, and provide teletherapy in order to meet our timelines and implement the IEP goals. This particular contract is valued at $89,600 to be paid through IDEA funds. You have a copy of that in front of you. Do you have any questions about that one? All right, the next one is for Solient Health. Efforts to find a full-time teacher of the visually impaired, or TVI, have been unsuccessful to date. So in order to provide an instructional program for the 25 MPS students with blindness or low vision, we're requesting that the district contract with Solient Health to secure a teacher of the visually impaired to provide those direct instructions to students and the consultative services to teachers and other service providers. The pro forma analysis is based on 20 hours per week or 80 hours per month for a total of 960 hours throughout the contract. The hourly rate for a teacher of the visually impaired is depending upon the number of years experience, and that is between $73 and $81 an hour. Therefore, the range for the contract value is $70,080 to $77,760 to be funded via IDEA allocations. Are there any questions about this particular contract?
No questions. Thank you very much. Dr. Williamson on rhythm.
Good evening, Board President, Dr. Moore, and the rest of the board members. We're presenting to you a contract for Rhythm app. Rhythm app will be an application that will add to our social emotional learning suite that we have begun this school year. With this app, it will allow us to have daily real-time check-ins with all of our staff as well as all of our students. And as a part of that suite, there will be immediate snapshot lessons in response to the data that is input by the individual. It will allow for the district members to receive immediate triggers if keywords are entered and any child indicates that there is any at-risk behavior going on. And for the total of $78,764, this will complement the curricula that we've already invested in, and this is for 2 years.
Any questions from the board? Thank you, Dr. Williamson.
Thank you.
Mr. Anderson, facilities update?
Good evening, Dr. Moore, President Will, Vice President Mitchell, and members of the board. If you'll see your spreadsheet there, go over a few of these items. The Goodwin and Flowers re-roof, still not getting any real news on materials. The insulation is what is the backup on that, and that could stretch, but I don't have any date, tentative date to start that yet, but we're ready on our end contract. You guys approved that back in June, and we've done our pre-construction meeting, so we're just, again, waiting on materials there. The Brubaker Complex HVAC, or Brubaker Middle School HVAC, is about 88% completed. They're finishing phases 5 and 6 well ahead of schedule and should wrap that up before the end of the year for sure. None of the work that's being done is done interfering with any of the classrooms. The areas that are affected by that, they brought in move-in cools to keep those classrooms cooler, and of course with the cooler weather that we're having now too as well, that's helped also. The central office consolidation, that bid opening will be next week. We pushed it just a little bit in requests from the general contractors that were bidding on the project. We had 7 show up to that pre-construction meeting, so that was very promising, and hopefully we'll get us a good pricing on that, and that is PSCA funding for the majority of that. The Bellinger Hill roof over, that is something I've tried to hold off on because that is a group that will be coming over in the consolidation as much as I can, but our roof repair people said it's just beyond repair, and I think Ms. Jackson can attest to that with the buckets to catch the water in that building. So that is something that we're going to have to do, but that will be ETF funding. And then the Dalrater roof storm damage replacement, that was done under an emergency declaration back with a storm that occurred back a while ago, but through risk management, that's paid for through insurance funds, and this is really just a ratification of what has gone through, similar to what we did with BTW. When it burned, we were able to go into an emergency declaration and operate without having to go through the board approval process on that, but the bid process was maintained through this and was advertised with concealed bids, and that is being taken care of as we speak, that damage that was there. The BTW progress, I know I sent some photos with those. It's moving along. Those photos are old. If you haven't been by there recently, as of this week, the last week, this week, you can really start to see the structure come into shape. A lot of the steel and decking are up on the Magnet Arts portion. They have sprayed the area for bugs for the athletic area, put the plastic down and wire mesh down, and they'll be getting ready to pour that final slab next week, so we'll have that done. The black box part, the thing that is lacking on it, you have some concrete pillars on the side of it. Those will be poured along the same time as the slab for the gymnasium, so that the steel that supports some of the roof structure for the black box theater will come up. So I had a question brought up as far as a field trip. We'll be able to do something like that. I've already mentioned it to the architects back when you guys requested an update from them back in the summer, and they feel like towards the end of November, first part of December, that we should be able to provide you some sort of tour out there, maybe at some point with Dr. Moore's guidance on those things. So, any questions?
I, for one, am ready to put my hard hat on and go see BTW. Any questions? Thank you very much, Mr. Anderson. Oh, just a little shout out to Mr. Anderson, too. I know we all get calls or emails or texts from time to time for some piece of something at a school that needs repair, and it is just a pleasure to forward it to Mr. Anderson, and he takes care of it. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank y'all so much for all your help with that. We can't do it all by ourselves. We can do it together. Thank you so much.
Let's see, Mr. Mitchell, the Sunday system update quote.
Good evening, Dr. Moore, Board Chair Will, Assistant Chair Mitchell, board members. I will ask, if you will, Dr. Sharkins to join me up here. And we're presenting information for the approval of an agreement with Sunday System. And Sunday System is around the Literacy Act, and I will let Dr. Sharkins speak more to it.
Good evening. Good evening, Dr. Moore, Chair Will, and distinguished board members. The Alabama Literacy Act mandates that an elementary core reading program have a scientifically based reading instruction, multisensory language instruction, and include the Alabama Course of Study English Language Arts. MPS's current core reading program, which is Wonders, does not have a multisensory component. Sunday System is a multisensory resource that is utilized in K through third grade classrooms to address the reading foundation deficits, foundational gaps that our students have. So this contract that is before you is to continue to provide those additional resources for those K through third grade classrooms and students. Are there any questions?
No questions.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Sharkins. The second item, we're recommending approval of an agreement with Edgenuity. Edgenuity is a agency that we worked with in the past. They provide professional development services, ongoing coaching and mentoring support and modeling support, Odyssey-ware and critical skills around grades K-5, MyPath content support in grades 6-8, courseware support in grades 9-12, as well as instructional services in the absence of teachers and CTA courses as well. Are there any questions?
No questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Mr. Watts.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Moore. You should have before you the financial statement for the month of August of 2021. As we know, August represents the 11th month of the fiscal year. Our fiscal year began October 1st and ends September 30th. So August is the 11th month of the fiscal year. The financial statement contains first, the explanation of financial data, which is just a general discussion of the CSFO's, what his prognosis is as it relates to the finances as of that date. A snapshot analysis, it's a brief synopsis of our district's financial position as of August of 2021. The monthly budget percentage, of course, as we stated, this is the 11th month of the fiscal year. So that represents about 91.67% of the budget. The monthly and annual comparative statement of revenues and expenditures is mainly a compilation of our month-to-date and year-to-date revenues and expenditures, and it compares that to the prior year. A statement of cash flow is basically all cash receipts and cash paid as of August 31st, 2021. A pie chart, which is basically a chart graph of those receipts received and cash paid. Then we have the F exhibits, which is the combined balance sheet, which basically speaks to the board's financial position as of August 31st, 2021, as well as our combined statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance, which is basically an income statement, along with a definition of accounting terms. Madam President, we can turn to tab 2 in the financial statement, just a brief synopsis of where we stand as of August 2021. We note that our beginning fund balance was about $34.4 million. We see our total revenues and expenditures, and we currently have our ending fund balance of about $57.4 million. We would also note that our expenditures is at about 84.5%. Of course, that's pretty good since in a 11th month, expenditures are assumed to be around 91.67%. So we are below our budgeted expenditures. Right below that, we do see our payroll expenditures for the month of August and compared to the prior year. Up in the right-hand corner, we see our local revenues comparisons of our sales tax, property taxes, and the various district taxes comparable to 2020. And we see that is up a little bit. Our sales tax has been pretty aggressive over the last year. Lastly, our general fund balance analysis, we see that as of August 2020, we had about $35 million as our general fund balance. Comparable to August of 2021, we have about $57.4 million in our general fund balance. So we have an increase in our general fund balance of about $21.7 million comparable to August of the prior year. Of course, our required 1 month fund balance by the state is about $18.7 million, so we're beyond 2 months reserve, and we're very, very happy about that. Madam President.
It's almost 3 times.
That's correct. That's correct. We're projecting to end the year probably around 51 million.
Tell me why we have expenditures that are so far below what were projected.
It's a combination of things. One of the things, the board made some very difficult decisions back in 2020 where we had to curb some of our expenditures comparable to the amount of monies that we're receiving from the state and federal government. So kudos to the board for making those very, very tough decisions. Secondly, because of COVID, much of our operational expenditures have decreased. We do expect those expenditures to increase during the next fiscal year. Therefore, in our budget for next fiscal year, we took under account as if we were going to be in school a full year and everything was operating as normal. Of course, utility expenditures are down from from 2019, I would just say, because 2020, most of that was during COVID also. Subs, and there's just several other type expenditures that are down, and a lot of that is due to COVID. So a combination of the COVID and some very, very tough decisions that the board made a year or two ago.
That wasn't a complaint. That was just a question, because
Yes,
it's a
ma'am.
very good financial. Anybody else have a question? Okay. Thank you. Is Tracy Williams here? Okay, we're gonna go down. We'll come back to that. Redistricting, Dr. Coleman.
Thank you, Madam President. I asked that we discuss this issue because we're at a time where it's just going to be crucial. Since the release of our census data for 2020 has been released, it is incumbent upon us, as with other elected groups and entities, that we look at the district lines that will affect our district for the next 10 years. there have been several informational forums presented, as I've explained, both nationally and statewide and locally. I said both, but nationally and locally. And they're reminding us how important it is for our electorate to make certain that our voters understand the significance of the lines and the impact that will have on their individual votes, as well as making certain that we are levelized and balanced in our electorate. I would love for us to make sure that we are informed, and again, that we make sure our public is informed, that just like the assessments we have as we are exploring our capital projects, we have demographers out there and we have mapping experts who are looking at our district and drawing the lines on where the impact of our voters will have, what impact our voters will have on our elections. And when it comes to school board districts, rather than have someone tell us where our constituents are, I would love for us to have the input on our constituents and our electorate, again, to levelize and make certain that the lines are fairly drawn and that they do represent, that our representation is efficiently placed around our city. We are coming up on an election cycle. And again, I think what's more important than that is whatever decisions are made with this map will affect us for the next 10 years. There are scores of things that I could offer, you know, as rationale for wanting to discuss this, and I've discussed it individually with a few of you, and you know, I think the entire board knows how I feel, and I do thank you for supporting the fact that I would love for us to talk about that. And I do have a recommendation on a group that would, I think, be an effective group to help us with that process, a group that has a reputation for drawing fair maps, et cetera. But again, I wanted it placed before this body so that we could have some conversations with each other.
If I may, because, you know, I called you and I said, you know, I don't know anything about redistricting. 10 years ago, I was not thinking about redistricting any more than I was when you put out the memo. But what I have done, and I have done a little bit of research, and have found that Alabama State University's Center for Leadership and Public Policy is who helped us 10 years ago. And what it's a whole process, and you've made me learn all kinds of new things, but it's a process where they can impose the current map. They can impose where the population shifts are, and they can help us make these decisions. They actually draw the map. And one of the things that I think I learned, and I think you ladies will agree, that you're right, we don't want somebody drawing our map. We want to draw our own map with the most informed information that we can do. The other thing I learned is the deadline is November 24th, which is just around the corner. So it is extremely timely what you're working on. And we do have to make some quick decisions because it's a process. It's not a here's what we're going to do. We have input. Every board member should have input into where the lines need to change, if they need to change, and how we want to do it. But I know we've got things going, but these guys, the Alabama State University Center for Leadership and Public Policy, seem to be the experts. They're working with something like 47 counties and the state and everything else.
Most certainly, I am familiar with the group, and I am aware that they have helped us in the past. And I think that's why I made the recommendation that I did. And, you know, thank you for bringing them before us again. But my recommendation, when I sent my first memo out, and again tonight, would be that the Alabama Redistricting and Reapportionment Project work with us and for us, and I present that to us. I know this is not the time to put something up for a vote because this is a work session.
I think we need to get the information and have it as quickly as we can move on it.
Exactly.
To do that, because
expediency was, I mean, that was the issue. The
Right.
fact that we have a looming deadline and we needed to get it on the table, we needed to make a decision.
Okay.
And I thank you for allowing me to speak to it.
Oh, yeah. Anybody have questions on this?
I just saw today that the governor is holding a special session for redistricting. Does that all have to do with this? Is it all the same?
That's for the legislature and the Senate.
That's for the state districts. Again, I've learned a lot. But
Okay.
basically, the state does theirs, the county does theirs, the city does theirs, and we do ours. Me too, but you know, even within the city and county and us are all different districts. But we need to have our say in how we want it done too. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Coleman. Yes, thank you very much.
And it is important that we get on this as soon as possible and making sure that we have information from both companies so that we're able to make a viable decision as to which company would do the best job for us. So as quickly as we can, let's get on this.
Okay, and I'm happy you said that because one of the things I wanted us to look at is how we have our input. And I like the idea of being able to speak with people we know, people whose reputations we know, people who are willing and able, who are listening. I'm not saying that this other group wouldn't listen to us, but you know, we sort of feel comfortable with those with whom we have a confidence and working relationship rather than every 10 years. So again, as we move forward, I would still love for us to consider Alabama Redistricting and Reapportionment Project. Thank you.
Okay. Is Dr. Williams in the house? Tracy Williams? There we go. On the assessment results.
Good evening. I'm not sure who's operating the PowerPoint. Is he back there? Okay. If they can pull up the presentation, please. Okay. Great. Thank you so much. Before I begin, I want to assure the board members I won't go through all of the slides. You have a thick packet, so I'll just cover some of the highlights. And then if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me, and we can go into detail over anything that's presented. Once again, good evening, and I bring you greetings from the Office of Assessment and Accountability, and I apologize for being late, but if you know about your high schools, they're in the middle of pre-ACT and ACT work keys testing, and we had to get some materials in this evening. So thank you for allowing me to move further down on the agenda. Would you advance the slide, please? And just very quickly, just for a little explanation, we haven't been here in a while, but ACAP is the Alabama Comprehensive Assessment Program, and it's a system of assessments that measure the knowledge and abilities of our students. And that's the main focus. We want to figure out where our students are so we'll know how to help them progress on their individual educational plans. And we're making sure that we provide information to educators as well as parents regarding educational strengths and weaknesses. We're providing information to assist local and state educational personnel in reviewing and planning for instructional and curricular improvements. And we're here to make sure that local and state agents, educational personnel, policymakers, and public regarding the educational performance of Alabama students, you have this information. So I've heard some information tonight that we have some partners who want to assist us. Then that's the point for us being here and sharing our data, so you'll know exactly where our students are and where they need to go. So would you advance the next slide, please? Montgomery County has the privilege of servicing over 28,000 students, and with that, you notice all the state required assessments. We fall under each one of those assessments. We administer the access for ELLs, the alternate access, the ACAP alternate, the ACAP summative, the ACT with writing, pre-ACT, and we're also participating in NAEP, even though they randomly select. We normally feel like Montgomery County gets randomly selected every time, and our schools feel like they get randomly selected every time as well. And also under the optional assessments, we also make sure that our 12th graders participate in ACT work keys. Next slide, please. I won't cover the entire information on this slide, but please know we make sure that the test security guidelines and procedures are all in place before we even start the assessment process in our schools and with our children. With that being said, the system test coordinator, myself, the building test coordinators, test administrators, and school monitors, who include central office staff as well as principals, must hold a valid Alabama teaching certificate. And we also have those alternate certificates that are granted by the State Department that we can also use in this program. But anyone that's involved in the assessment process must have a valid Alabama teacher certificate or a license that has been granted through the Alabama State Department of Education. That next slide, please. And just to kind of summarize that next slide, Dr. Moore as the superintendent and myself as assistant test coordinator, we make sure that everyone is trained. We have those particular forms that are in front of you on file for every person that's participating in the assessment program. Yes, we take assessment very seriously in Montgomery County. We're gonna make sure that when our teachers work hard, our students work hard, and they take a test, that their scores will not be invalidated because of something that we did not do properly. And with that, the next slide, please. And I don't do well standing behind the podium. I'm used to walking and talking, so that's why I'm kind of moving around. But ACAP summative grades 2 through 8, we'll look at this data first. And the entire program is called ACAP. But when we're looking at our middle schools and elementary schools, that assessment is titled ACAP summative grades 2 through 8. And please know it's titled 2 through 8 because second grade is included for benchmark information or for baseline data. But second grade scores are not included in the accessibility part of the picture. Strictly baseline information. Next slide, please. I want you to have the slide, so when you're having an opportunity to study the slides and the other charts that are coming along, you'll understand what's meant by a level 4, a level 3, a level 2, and a level 1. Level 4, advanced understanding. Level 3, strong understanding. Level 2, partial understanding. And level 1, minimum understanding. And please know the phrase or the statement that's consistent throughout all 4 levels is all this information is coming from the Alabama courses of study. There's no secret. When this particular assessment was designed, it was designed with the course of study in one hand, and we had to sit there and write the items along with a test developing company to study that we're supposed to be using was covered in that particular assessment. Next slide, please. And I'll explain the first 2 slides here, and the rest of the slides read the same. So if you notice, the first slide indicates or highlights second grade ELA, which is English Language Arts. MPS, we assessed 1,699 students on this grade level. Out of that 1,699 students, 32% of those students scored at a level or performed at a level 1. And remember, that's the minimal. Level 2, 41%. Level 3, 21%, and level 4, 6%. These second graders are this year's third graders. So this is what we have to start with. If you advance the slide, please. Third grade ELA, we assessed 1,743 students. Level 1, 18%. Level 2, 49%. Level 3, 27%. And level 4, 6%. These are this year's fourth graders. And just one more ELA slide. The next slide, please. We'll look at fifth grade. We assessed 1,714 students. Out of that, 21% level 1, 51% level 2, 25% level 3, and 3% level 4. These are this year's sixth graders. So do we see how to read those particular charts and how to look at that information? And off to the left, you'll see the state's totals, how we compare to the state, and the number of students that were assessed on the state level. All of the schools have their information broken down just like this, but it includes their individual schools' data. And they can drill down to the individual student to know exactly what the needs are per child. Do we have any questions on the ELA slides? Okay, would you advance, please, to the first math slide? Thank you. The math slide reads the same. On the right-hand side, you're showing, or you can see the number of students that were assessed in mathematics in this district as compared to the number in the state. And then you see kind of, where we are there. And look at math, we need some help. These are our third graders this year. 60% at level 1, 27% at level 2, 9% at level 3, and 4% at level 4. It's not impossible, but we have work to do, and we know that we had some learning loss because of COVID, but we have some work to do. Next slide, please. Third grade. I'll tell you what, advance all the way to grade 7. Thank you. Grade 7. These are this year's 8th graders. 62% level 1, 32 level 2, 5, 3, and 1 level 4. Please know when we're looking at accountability, even though we're not counting, it won't be displayed this year, level 3s and 4s make up the accountability, the proficiency area. So level 1s and 2s don't count when you're looking at accountability and proficiency, only 3s and 4s. So do we have work to do? Yes, we do. Can we do it? Yes, we can. Advance the next slide, please. 8th grade math. These are our 9th graders who have to get ready for pre-ACT as a 10th grader, and then ACT with writing as an 11th grader, and then work keys. So we have baseline data for those 9th grade classes. Once again, math 46%, level 1, 48, level 2, level 3, 5%, and level 4, 1%. So we do have work to do. Advance, please. Science. And just go to the next slide. One more time. And one more. That's our ACAP summative grades 2 through 8. Any questions on that? Looking at the ACT, which is the ACT with writing, and that's the test for the 11th graders. Here we have a snapshot over time. We see 5 years worth of data, and if you notice, the district MPS is in blue and the state is in green. And we're both kind of holding consistently there. The district 16 composite score throughout the last 5 years. Now last year, well in the spring, you see where the state fell some, but MPS still stayed at their 16. These are different children. Okay, so this is information or data over time. This is not the same cohort. Different year, different group of children. This kind of information is good when you're looking at making curricular decisions, decisions about your curriculum. The next slide, please. You have your benchmark information. When you're looking at your ELA, sorry, I can get you stand in front. You're looking at your ELA and your math and your science. How do you determine a level 4, a level 2, a level 3, and a level 4? And you have that there. So if I scored a level 15 in ELA or English Language Arts, then where do I fall for proficiency? A level 2. But we know level 3s and 4s make up that proficiency for us. Next slide, please. If you notice, you have our years going from 2016 up to 2020 or 2021. You have the number of students in the district that were assessed compared to the number in the state. Then you have your ELA or your English, your math, reading, and science, and who met all 4 of those benchmark areas. If you notice for our district, English seems to be the top performing subject out of those 4, or out of the 4, as well as with the state. So English, we're doing something good. We're going to have to look at that math and the reading and the science to make sure we pull that up as well. But once again, different students, different years. So this is a curriculum thing we need to look at or address. The next slide, please. ACT Work Keys, which is our 12th grade assessment, or the assessment for our 12th graders, where they can earn their credentials. If you advance, please, I'm sorry. All right. And here we have our benchmarks, and what this means when they have a certificate. If it's a bronze, silver, gold, platinum, where do those levels fall? And it's indicated there. And we highly and strongly encourage all of our 12th graders to participate and take this one really seriously, because they can use these certificates when they apply for jobs. And this is the same Work Keys assessment that the State Department gives as well in their employment, when they're employing, through their employment process, excuse me. If you advance the next slide, please. And over time, starting in 2018, you see where our district has landed with platinum, gold, silver, and bronze. We did test in 2021, not as many students, but you see that over the course of time, platinum increased from 130. We dipped in 2019, re-improved in 2020, and we dipped in 2021 because of COVID, and we didn't have as many students participating. But that's the goal, is to, that bronze, that last row, is to decrease that bronze, because we know that's not going to be part of our accountability or part of our proficiency, but the silver, gold, and platinum will. Okay? The Alabama State Department of Education's report card, and I'm going to kind of quickly cover the accountability piece. Right now, oh, go back one more, I'm sorry. Okay, we have no letter grade right now. We're maintaining the same letter grade of a 74C. They are collecting information. It will be displayed. So this year, we're just still collecting information, but on next year is when we're back on full task with accountability, and you'll see a full report. And in your packet, you'll notice I pulled some past accountability reports, just so you'll have something to look at and refer to. If you'll go to the next slide. Out of all of this, you will see college and career readiness. That was on display. And you can find all of this on the website, on the State Department's website. And what does that look like? I'm going to show you in just 1 second. Flip to the next slide, please. Here, who are we? We love to, or we always have information or questions about our students and how we compare to our neighboring districts and other districts. First, we have to know who we are. We're anywhere from 28,000 students and above. And you name it, we have representation in every ethnicity or ethnic group. Asian, Black, American Indian, Alaskan Native, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander, white, and 2 or more races. So we have everyone. We have representation in every grade level, pre-K through 12. Next slide, please. The next slide just shows you a historical look at our district. We basically stay the same. Our numbers may fluctuate, but our populations that are represented stay the same. Next slide, please. And this is what I was telling you about, the accountability 2019-2020. COVID, we did not have to report. Next slide. Next slide. Now, these two I want to explain because this was on display. The college and career readiness. College and career readiness rate is determined based on the percentage of students in the 4-year cohort who earned at minimum 1 credential. These credentials include a benchmark score on any section of the ACT. And you know, we saw that English, we saw the math, the reading, and the science, okay? Qualifying score on AP or IB exam, college or post-secondary credit, ACT Work Keys credential, military enlistment or career technical credentials, okay? Graduation rate, the formula is the percentage of students who entered 9th grade and graduated within 4 years. The formula equates to the number of on-time graduates in a given year divided by the number of entering first-time 9th graders 4 years earlier. So when I began 9th grade, I have to complete that 4-year cycle in order to be an on-time graduate. Students are followed individually from the time they start as a 9th grader. Even those students who transfer in and out, they're still followed, okay? So that brings us to the next slide. This was on display, the graduation rate for 2019-2020, as well as the career readiness rate. These totals are not ready yet for this year. We're still certifying data, and there's a report that has to go in on 15th, tomorrow, Friday. And so we should see some activity out there on the State Department's website, but right now, this is what's posted. Okay? Our next slide. And I won't go through all of these, but this is an example or a copy of what's currently out there on the State Department site. It's our accountability picture. And I told you that we're on hold right now. So the last time we had an accountability report was in 2018, 2019, and we're holding at that 74C for right now. Okay, if you advance the next couple slides, please. All right, stop right there. Okay. 2020, 2021, we have assessment data, and this is coming from the State Department's website as well, that we pulled, and we were asked about a couple of other districts that are around us. If you notice, I have Montgomery County, where it's our data. I have some other data from some other places, but I don't have their names there, even though it's on the public site. Well, this was not about them, this is about us, so I didn't put their names out there. But if you look at Montgomery County, that first line ELA, and you see the percent proficient and the participation rate. The next two lines, the second line represents a district that has less than 3,000 students. They're close, they're our neighbor, but they have less than 3,000 students. That next line represents a close district that they have less than 10,000 students. And remember, we have almost 28,000. So when your population increases, those different demographics also increase, and that also has something to do with the way your scores are represented. That next section where you see Montgomery County, and you see 31% proficient, and 32% proficient, and 19% proficient, those are two districts that are similar in size and demographics to Montgomery County. So you can see the difference. We're looking at the first set is who's around us, but when you're looking at data and you want to successfully or effectively measure an apple to an apple as compared to an orange to an apple, you want to make sure that data matches up as closely as possible when you look at demographics to get a true picture on where you stand. That next section represents the math. Now, I know you might have some questions about this one, so I'll let it stay up for a minute and give you a chance to digest. Any questions on that one? Okay, we're going to go to the next slide really quickly. Also, the next couple slides also are showing comparison data with those same other districts that are close to us, and then some other districts that are compatible in size and demographic makeup. Here you see the different demographics, the enrollment, and who's represented. Next slide. Once again, 2020, COVID. Next slide. And then you see where we compare with the graduation rate and college and career readiness to those close or surrounding districts. Next slide, please. Districts of same size, we're the first, over 28,000, second one, 36,000, third one, 22,000, and you can see the demographics and how similar we are in size and in makeup. Next slide, please. And then there you see the graduation rates for all three, as well as the college career readiness for all three. And so when you're comparing, we just want to make sure that we're careful and we're comparing similar or like demographics when we're looking at that data. And that's it. Now I just have some more samples all the way to 2018. Any questions? Was I fast or was I good? Dr. Moore?
Thank you, Tracy. You are very thorough as usual, and you always have to handle a lot of information.
Yes.
And sometimes it takes a minute to digest. So if we have any questions coming from the board at some point, I will forward those to you.
Great, you can digest, and also if you want the information based on your districts, just let me know and I'll pull it for you, and so you can have a district look as well. Thank you.
Thank you. District Director for AASB District 4. Do you want to take that, or do you want me to talk about it? Well, no, there's a ballot. Everybody's got a ballot in a green envelope. We're required by the state to submit one ballot, so we have to decide who that person is. So do you want us to go ahead and fill this out?
They need to go on and do it, and then Leslie can take it up.
Okay, so we'll take 1 minute and do it and give it to Leslie.
Can I ask a question about that, please?
Sure.
Have we had somebody on this board before
Not in our 3 years.
Okay, so the other thing we've done has been the delegates for,
That's coming up next.
okay, so we've not ever done this since
No,
in the last
nobody-
3 years.
No.
Okay. Can I ask another stupid question?
No such thing.
Okay, so how are these names determined?
They were nominated or self-nominated.
Gotcha, okay, thank you.
I threw my name in the hat. Okay, and while she's doing that, I think, is next to discuss the delegation. So we do have a delegate, AASB Delegate Assembly coming up December 2nd in Birmingham. And Montgomery Public Schools has 5 delegates. So I think the discussion is who would like to be a delegate. We're going to have to get some handcuffs. Would you like to be a delegate? It's not hard. It's okay. Claudia will be a delegate. Dr. Coleman? It is in person. Are you not going? Okay. Who's going in December to Birmingham? Okay. Okay. Jana and Claudia. Cassandra, if we need you, could you be one? Okay. 5. Okay. Okay. We've got Cassandra.
I was about to say, the only thing it means is that this person is a voter, not that not that she has any other responsibilities, right?
Right.
So from what I understand, since we have 5 delegates and 1 alternate, 6 people, we just have to determine who the alternate is because the 6 people attending would fit that bill.
Do we have 6 that are attending? Okay. Okay. Yep, that's fine. Well, then I think we've got it. Okay? Thank you. Dr. Moore, ratification of the Ben E. Keith Company agreement.
Taking me too fast tonight. So the ratification of the Ben Keith Company agreement, we've had issues with the supply chain of food for our cafeterias. That's been in all the news and everything else. And a little bit of suspicion, I think, about what that means. It just simply means that we couldn't get the food. And so we did some emergency work a couple of weekends ago with Chad and some of the other folks, including having people to come in to unload. But we were not able to get our normal distributor that normally gives us the food or that we purchase the food from, so we were able to do an emergency purchase in order to put food into the cafeterias to be served to the students. And so under that, we did the Benny Keith Company. It was an emergency, so now I'm just asking for you to ratify that we did that purchase and that you're aware of it. But it is totally legal. I just need for you to ratify it.
Okay. Do we have something on the AASB or? Oh, okay. All right, perfect. Perfect. Okay, with that, this work session is adjourned, and we will call our board meeting to order. And we have a quorum. Can I get an approval of this agenda?
Madam President, I move approval of the agenda as printed.
Okay, is there a second?
I second.
Okay, all in favor with a show of hands? Okay. Before we get started, I know I've just gotten a text message that we're missing Dr. Keith tonight, who had surgery, and she is doing just fine and hopes to be back with us at our next meeting. And as always, I like to start our meetings with good things that are happening here in the district. We have great news this month. McMillan International Academy has been named a 2021 National Blue Ribbon School by the U.S. Department of Education. It was just one of 5 schools in the state to receive this recognition. And more good news, U.S. News and World Report has added elementary and middle school rankings this year, and I am proud to report that Forest Avenue is ranked number 2 in the state for elementary schools. It keeps getting better. Baldwin Middle was ranked 3 in the middle schools in the state. And Floyd Middle was the 7th ranked school in the state of Alabama. It just keeps going, good stuff. We need to congratulate Lamp High School. This year they had 10 merit semifinalists, so we want to congratulate all of those students for their achievement. The next thing I'd like to mention is something that that will have a huge impact on our students throughout the district. Alabama State University recently received a $24.7 million grant for a Gear Up program, which is aimed at preparing students for post-secondary education. This 7-year project will begin with a cohort of about 4,500 6th and 7th grade MPS students. The program will only expand from there. We're extremely excited about the opportunity that this will provide for our students, and we are very grateful for our outstanding partnership with ASU. And finally, wanted to give a shout out for 2 of our schools that won the volleyball city championship. So congratulations to Floyd Middle Magnet for winning the middle school championship, and Jeff Davis High for winning the varsity championship. You know, there's wonderful things happening within our schools, and I think we need to celebrate it as often as we can. And with that, I would like to turn over the podium to Jade Jones.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening, Madam President, Dr. Moore, and board members. We're excited tonight to share our Employees of the Month, and up first we have Mrs. Katura Mace from Morning View Elementary. Our principal, Mrs. Miller, had the following to share. If Mrs. Mace is here tonight, if she'll join us down at the front. As she's making her way down, I'm sorry, Madam President. As she's making her way down, Mrs. Mace is an awesome 3rd grade math, science, and social studies teacher at Morning View. She doesn't mind sharing her plethora of knowledge with everyone. Not only does she ensure that the students are learning, she doesn't mind sharing with her colleagues and the system. She has been asked to assist with making district-wide curriculum decisions for the past couple of years, as well as working with development of our yearly curriculum guides. She is one who goes above and beyond to celebrate accomplishments of students and teachers at The View. Also, she leads the PBIS committee, and to quote Mrs. Miller, Mrs. Mace rocks. Let's give her a round of applause. Madam President, Dr. Moore, yes, please, if you'll come down, grab a picture. And Madam President, we would like to thank our partners over at Baptist Health for supplying our Employees of the Month a $25 gift card. Oh, take your time. Oh, no, you're fine. Take your time. Thank you, Mrs. Mace. All right, next up, we would like to recognize Mrs. Stephanie Oliver, if she'll come down, and if we'll have our Associate Superintendent of Human Resources join in with the picture, please. Thank you. Mrs. Stephanie? Here. All right. Mrs. Stephanie Oliver, who serves as our Office Manager for Human Resources, is truly a team player. Personally, I can attest to the fact that she'll jump in at any moment to help anyone within the office. You never see her without a smile, and that just brightens up your day. She'll answer any phone call, any question. I know I have a script here, but personally, I like to say thank you for all the hard work that you do. Human Resources is a large entity in the system, and you do a wonderful job in your role. So we'd like to thank you from the bottom of our hearts for everything that you do. And Mrs. Oliver will definitely receive a $25 gift card and her certificate. Thanks again to Baptist Health. All right, let's give them another round of applause. And finally, Madam President, tonight we would like to recognize, you all can make it back to your seats, all 52 of our school principals, because this month serves as National Principal Month. So we have 52 in the district, and I would like to say thank you for all of their dedication and service to our schools and to our students and families. So let's give them a round of applause as we celebrate them. Madam President.
Okay, we are at the point where we have scheduled public comments. And let me just read the directions. Requests must be made in advance in writing to the superintendent's office by 4:30 p.m. on the Tuesday preceding the meeting date. Requests must have specified the nature of the business to be taken up with the board and the name of the person who will address the board to be added to the agenda. Communications must be respectful. Discussing specific student or employee matters will not be allowed. Individuals who have concerns that are inappropriate to be solved in this venue are welcome to seek a problem-solving meeting with the superintendent. Immediate feedback by the board may not be provided. However, you may be contacted for follow-up by the superintendent or her designee. Public comments may not exceed 3 minutes. The board chairman has full authority to terminate the remarks of any person whose comments contain personal attacks, exceed the time limit, or are otherwise inappropriate. A speaker may be considered disruptive who continues to speak when their allotted time has ended, when asked to stop speaking by the board chairman, or is otherwise inappropriate. If a person fails to comply when asked to terminate comments, he or she will be escorted to their seat, out of the auditorium, and/or off of MPS property, depending on the level of disruption. And our first comments will come from Ms. Monica Powell on navigating through the pandemic. From the heart of a teacher.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Monica Powell, Dunbar Raymer School. Good evening, greetings to Superintendent Dr. Ann Roy Moore, the Montgomery County Board of Education President, and board members. Montgomery Education Association, Principal Hall, fellow teachers, students, parents, and friends of the community. Thank you for hanging in here with us as we navigate through these challenging and constantly changing times. What happens when you respond to tough times and demanding situations? All have faced times of trouble during this pandemic. The writer of Proverbs says, if one falters in times of trouble, how small is your strength? If you fall to pieces in a crisis, there wasn't much to you in the first place. Again, thank you. As we navigate through this pandemic from the heart of a teacher, we, the Montgomery Public School teachers, in order to form a more perfect learning environment, establish CDC COVID-19 protocols, preventions, promote consistent and correct use of mask control, social distancing, hand washing, sanitizing, respiratory etiquette, covering coughs, sneezing in your sleeve, staying home when sick, getting tested, vaccinations, isolations, quarantine, constant cleaning and disinfecting the learning environment, domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense against COVID-19, Delta variant and all relatives, promote the general welfare and secure the blessings of liberty, to provide continuous access to a free public education through, but not limited to, virtual learning, telephone conferences, home visits, emails, learning packets for students living in areas with and without internet access, school buses used as hotspots, and lunch stations by any means necessary, sometimes located in areas unknown to the average mankind. To ourselves and our posterity, that generations of educators to come may know that we, the teachers, remain vigilant, faithful, and courageous through the worst crisis ever known to our generation. To ordain and establish as we preserve and honor the memory of all educators that we lost locally, statewide, and nationally. We, the teachers of Montgomery Public Schools, will survive this pandemic. God bless our city, our state, our Montgomery Education Association, and God bless America.
Are you running for president next year? Thank you. Our next speaker will be Katrina Ocampo on COVID leave.
Good evening, Dr. Moore, Madam President, and board members. I am Macia Beaumoney. My name was changed. I am a teacher third grade teacher at Fitzpatrick Elementary School. On August the 26th, I was feeling a little bad. And so I went home and got tested. And I ended up with COVID. And I ended up having to be out of school from the 26th of August until the 10th of September. And I've spoken with the AEA members, and I was trying to see if it would be any way possible if you guys would reconsider the teachers and the employees that were out during August and September. I have 4 children, and for me to have those days and not be paid for those days is really going to be detrimental for me for next month. So I am asking if you all would please reconsider the teachers and staff members who ended up getting or coming in contact with anyone that had COVID. The second day of school, I had 2 of my children in my classroom that were quarantined because their parents were hospitalized. By the 4th day, I had another student who was out. And again, the next week, it hit me. I was told that August, because it was August, I could have gotten it over the summer. So maybe that's why it wouldn't be reconsidered for us, or that it would be too much trouble. But I am asking and pleading with you guys to please reconsider the teachers and employees that were ended up with COVID or get in contact with someone with COVID for August and for September.
Okay, next we have Mr. Tislam Ellis.
Good afternoon, Superintendent Moore, our board president and vice chair, as well as our board members. A few weeks from now, we will mark the 1-year anniversary for the first employee who passed away from COVID-19 in the district. And today, I stand before you, members of the Montgomery County Board of Education, asking you to strongly consider approving retroactive leave and placing no timetable on the current COVID-19 leave until there is a huge decrease in numbers, signaling an end to this challenging period. Currently, we ask our educators to work in classes and take precautions while working with scholars who have social and emotional issues. And they yearn to have some sense of educational normalcy, only to be reminded when someone has to be quarantined, we are still dealing with COVID-19. For the educator, the system was gracious to approve a one-time only until December COVID reprieve, but what happens the next time? We ask educators who may have possibly exhausted days the last time they had to quarantine to remain dedicated in one breath, but in the other, we forced them to squander to figure out how to make ends meet because they had to take time off to quarantine if they did not have the leave time. These same educators recognize that they have no days, ultimately risking hundreds for fear of being able to care for their own families. Speaking of families, at one time, if someone in the household contracted COVID-19, there was a 20-day plus 10-day quarantine period. For an educator with no days, that equates to a whole month's pay. Safety for all needs to be a recurring MPS theme, and the option to allow employees to use their time now for time served before and in time moving forward. I ask the board and the superintendent to strongly reconsider extending the time period and also allowing educators who had to use their time previously to be able to do so. Jessica Kane, an MCEA member, could not make it tonight. I'm leaving a copy of her statement for each of you. Thank you.
Okay, we have Ms. Margaret Brooks on MPS leadership. Oh. Excuse me, is Michelle Krosky?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I was next.
Okay, great, thank you, on unfair treatment.
Good afternoon. I'm here today because I've been experiencing a lot of things with the Montgomery Public Schools, being a parent and registering a child in school. First of all, I want to thank the board for when I was a substitute teacher for 8 years. I watched principals steal money from the school system and get their grass cut at home. So I want to thank the board for doing the opportunity of making one checkbook where all Montgomery Public Schools money go to that one checkbook. And I subbed for the school system 8 years. And I enjoyed subbing because I love talking to the kids and letting them know my life experience. But unfortunately, I'm no longer a sub as of 2014, which is fine. I had a baby in 2012, born in December the 5th. And in the midst of subbing, I watched my child's father cut grass at home at people's principals' houses and get paid out of the school money. That is embezzlement. And I've been talking about it over and over, and a lot of corruption came up about the money being stolen because every school had their own checkbook. But I'm here today because I've been experiencing things that should not go on. If a parent is allowed to enroll a child in school, the mother, the biological mother, I enrolled my daughter in school, and I have principals, student support system, and principals changing the paperwork and putting who they want to check the child out. You can't do that. I understand he cut your grass. I understand he got money. My baby father is a $500,000 man, I must admit. But money should not be the leverage to rule the world. I want to know, well, I guess they cut the mic off, but I want to know how many of y'all, how would y'all feel if y'all arrive at the school and your child is not there?
Okay, this is not, I don't think this is what we were signed up for here.
Unfair treatment. I enrolled my child, Ms. Webbs, in school, and I fill out the paperwork. And if I put somebody down and don't put nobody down, they go behind me and recorrect it.
I think this is something that needs to be taken care of.
I can't get a meeting. I emailed, I did the proper chain of command. I've been emailing Ms. Moore. I've been trying to ask somebody to sit down and talk to me. I arrived at the school on September the 22nd, and my child wasn't there. And they told me, oh, the mother picked up. I'm the mother. I'm the mother. Put yourself in my shoes. I want to know if you go pick up your child and your child is not at school and somebody tell you the mother picked it up, how would you feel? And I've asked for a meeting with Ms. Moore, Dr. Moore. I've asked for a meeting about the student support person that I've had conflict with in 2018. They're mad because I had the law changed. All children can go to the first grade as long as they're 6 by December 31st. Like they can claim their child on the tax return. You can claim your baby on the tax return.
Now your time is up.
Okay, well, I appreciate it. I'll be back November the 9th, and I'm gonna continue to come until I have a meeting. Thank you.
Ms. Margaret Brooks on MPS leadership.
Members of the board, following my last presentation to you, met with a hostile rebuttal and a presumption that we were not representative of the opinions of many in our community, we decided to conduct a survey providing an avenue for individuals to log their own opinions. Before I share the results, however, it is important that I qualify our data with 3 important points. First, studies indicate that 200 to 300 respondents in an area with our adult population provide a good sample size, and we have 246. Second, to ensure that we reached a large representative group of our community, one of our methods of getting our survey out was to post it 3 times on a 6,900-member MPS community page. Finally, in their 2014 study, Miller and Lambert concluded that only 24% would respond to an open-ended question near the end of a survey, and our results yielded a 23.9% response. The survey, which I will leave with you following my presentation, was designed for individuals to rate how they see the effectiveness of the superintendent and school board leadership, their own confidence in the leadership, the transparency of the school board, their confidence in the board communicating accurate information, their satisfaction regarding the information they receive from the board, their confidence in the school board's search for the next superintendent, and an opportunity to express concerns or praise for what the school board has done. Further, each survey participant was able to select all applicable roles in which they fit into the community. For example, parent or grandparent of MPS, teacher, community member, etc. Less than 20% surveyed found the current superintendent and school board leadership to be effective. Over 89% expressed a lack of confidence in the leadership. Over 86% indicated that they had no confidence the board communicated accurate information. Over 80% were dissatisfied by the information they received, and over 89% expressed that they had no confidence in the board's search for a new superintendent. The final question was open-ended, and unfortunately, I have no positive feedback to share, but you may view the responses yourself. While it is clear that the community supports MPS as evident by the passing of the new tax, it is also abundantly clear the community has concerns with the current board and leadership administering those funds. As an active member of the community and parent of students in MPS, I urge you to read the survey results, listen to those who have spoken, and form a community search committee for a new superintendent. Thank you.
We have Ms. Jordan Berry, retroactive COVID leave. I think that's a mister, isn't it?
Typos happen. All right, Dr. Moore, Madam President, distinguished board members, thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Jordan Berry, math teacher at Lamp High School. The Saturday before students returned to school in August, I personally did test positive for COVID-19. And during my mandatory quarantine time, I had to use 7 sick days to cover that absence. So when the district announced the decision to grant 10 consecutive leave work days from October 1st to December 31st of this year, my initial reaction was joy for my fellow colleagues. When I considered this decision in light of the worsening sub-shortage, that's how I know your decision to offer this current leave is a thoughtful one. But after about 24 hours, though, it felt like a gun punch. Why was the timing of my earlier breakthrough case being treated differently? I couldn't make sense of what had changed between the beginning of August to now that would drive such a seemingly arbitrary decision. Now, I'm not saying that circumstances now are the same as they were back in August. In fact, I would argue that circumstances now are drastically different, and here's how. Back in August, the 7-day average case count for Alabama was almost 4,000, according to the New York Times. Now the numbers have dwindled to less than 1,000. Back in August, schools were just opening back up, creating unprecedented levels of immune system exposure that students and teachers alike hadn't seen given the summer break and the number of virtual students last year, so pre-pandemic levels. So I think for us to compare October to August is kind of ludicrous. It was much easier for teachers to test positive for COVID-19 back in August. I think equitable treatment of employees is at the heart of the matter I want to discuss today. At a time when it was needed most, it was unavailable. MPS was an early leader in how to handle the pandemic. Beginning last year virtually, and this year with masks, was lambasted by the public and our neighboring districts who wound up following suit with many of our own MPS policies in many instances. Thus, the MPS decision not to offer retroactive leave for August and September of this school year then made me consider two possibilities. MPS could not offer retroactive leave or chose not to offer retroactive leave. Now, the first consideration is immediately eliminated when I see those same neighboring districts who followed suit offering retroactive COVID leave to their own personnel. So this leads me to consider two further possibilities. Either MPS does not believe in COVID leave at all, but that's clearly not true given the October 1st extension, or MPS made an easier decision over the right one. One possible solution is to offer retroactive leave back to August 9th unconditionally, or as an alternative, allow employees to go through an individual appeals process. I understand that retroactive leave back to August 9th will require work, but I volunteer my own time and services to help in whatever way would be legally appropriate. Whatever I'd be allowed to do and whatever I could do down at the central office, I'd be there, no questions asked, to make this happen because it's the right thing to do. I hope with a reconsideration of this issue, MPS can move forward back to being a leader in our state for how to handle education during a pandemic. Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Ms. Selena Burnett.
Good evening. Teachers, unfortunately, are sometimes mistreated on the job and need to file complaints and even grievances. When a teacher has followed protocol and reaching out to MPS leadership personnel for months about a grievance that they filed, and for months they have received no response, what is a teacher to do? If you have ever been a teacher in a classroom, you would understand, for instance, the shock and awe upon finding out that your entire classroom was intentionally discarded. Imagine this cruel act happening not only right before the beginning of a new school year, but of all times, happening with the already heavy-laden stress of dealing with a pandemic. As a teacher, you file a grievance for this instance and expect to at least receive a response. What is a teacher to do when you've reached out to every level of MPS personnel to obtain a reasonable response about your issue, yet there's been nothing reasonable nor substantial presented? When there's no consequences for these types of egregious actions, it says to teachers that a level of tolerance and support for the said actions is not only acceptable, but that as a teacher, you have no support from the district in which you painstakingly work. With this, I pose to you the following questions. Who is the department or person in charge of complaints and grievances? What is the written protocol for handling complaints and grievances? If HR is to direct someone else on what to do or say about a filed grievance or complaint, why wouldn't it be handled by HR to begin with? Why and when would a teacher be ignored on every level when trying to obtain a resolution to a grievance or a complaint he or she has filed? In times past, teachers have been placed on administrative leave, pending false accusations from upset children and sometimes by parents who just don't get their way. But what measures are taken to aid teachers when other MPS employees act in ways that are intentionally cruel and even result in possible property loss? I believe everyone can agree that having to endure months of being ignored and pushed aside is extreme in any instance. But this is happening within MPS when teachers file complaints and grievances. If a teacher acted in these ways or in any immoral or unprofessional manner to a student, the question is not if the matter would be handled, it's how expeditiously would the issue be handled. An unequivocal decision would be made to reprimand the teacher's actions, and it would not be handled per the teacher's discretion. I ask that you please take the necessary steps to do what is right regarding the grievances that are filed, despite who is wrong, and solidify a plan of action when teachers have been wronged and decide to utilize the grievance and complaint policy that has been given by MPS. Thank you very much.
And Ms. Ruby Giles.
Good evening, Madam President, board members, Superintendent Moore. My name is Ruby Giles, and I'm an elementary school counselor at Brubaker Primary School. I'm a member of the Alabama Education Association and the Montgomery County Education Association. I would like to take this opportunity to thank this board for allowing me to speak this evening. First, I want to thank you for all that you do to keep MPS moving forward. Then I would like to thank you for the 10 days of paid COVID leave that you implemented beginning October 1. And I would just like to ask, as some of my other colleagues have asked, that you would reconsider the date and make it retroactive to the beginning of the school year, because I too was impacted by COVID-19. I had to be in the hospital, I was hospitalized, I was in ICU, I went through physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy. And on tomorrow, I will undergo a surgical procedure. I'm here because of the grace of God, and I thank him for being gracious unto me. And I'm going to ask you to be gracious unto not only me, but to my colleagues all over, and that you would reconsider that, because I've had to take off from work, and I'm yet off and don't know when I will go back. And the 10 days that you provide would really help substantially. My husband has been off taking care of me, and I'm so thankful that he's here tonight, Mr. Dowes. I appreciate you. And I just want to ask that you would really reconsider that, because I'm not the only one. You've heard from different ones in this audience. There are more that need the assistance. I can go to the sick leave bank and request borrow 15 days that I will have to pay back, and I don't mind. But then after the 15 days, then what? Because I had to exhaust all of my leave before I could borrow 15 days. And then, since I'm in the sick leave bank, I can ask others to donate days to me. and hopefully they will be gracious enough, and I thank AEA for assisting me in this effort because they put it in the newspaper so that you can get help with those days. But I want to thank you for reconsidering. I walk by faith, and I just believe you're going to reconsider. And I just believe that we have not because we ask not. So tonight we're asking you, please reconsider. Thank you.
Okay. One of the things I might add, first of all, is to all of you who are here tonight, thank you for coming and expressing your concern about being paid retroactively. Of course, I hope that everyone understands that this is not something that is required, nor is it a pot of money that we receive in order to give you the 10 days. So I'm going to suggest that if we consider retroactive to August, that we end it in November rather than in December. It would be the same amount of time, but would move it back if the board wants to consider that, and I'll talk to you about it, not tonight unless you want to make some comments, but it would still be the same amount of time, but it would include August rather than ending in December as a possibility.
What she's suggesting is that it's from October through December now, and the compromise could be to retroactively do it from August through November. Is that correct? So that it does take care of the worst part, and that's really what it would amount to, because things are improving now.
Okay. So I just want to understand this. So instead of doing October 1 to December 31st, we would be August 9th, that was the first day of school, August 16th. No. Well, when the teachers went back, so it would be the beginning of school until November 30th, so the December would go away?
Yes.
Okay.
So they're asking us to add in August and September, which is 2 months. Or if it's, say, half of August, it's another month and a half added to the 3 months that we've already voted on and approved. So I'm suggesting that if you consider going back retroactively, that you change your ending date from December 31st to sometimes in November.
Okay. This may be a really stupid question, and please forgive me, but I'm really having a hard time understanding why there's a time frame on that anyway.
Because I'll tell you.
You know, I just, thank you.
I can answer that. This is not paid for by any federal money or anything else. This is a gift to the employees who might be caught in the situation.
I'm just having a hard time being quiet tonight. I'm really sorry, but this is not a gift. We are in a pandemic, and I have to say my piece about this.
That's fine.
I know Mr. Watts had told us what we have in reserves, and I know that we've gotten the care money or whatever it is, and I'm real happy about all that. But I have had people that I have lost, and every single person I've known that's had COVID, it has come at weird times. They have been vaccinated, they've been unvaccinated, they've been children and grown-ups, and for my staff... Can I
have you be quiet and let us hear what we're saying up here, please?
But for my staff and people, this is not a gift. It should be, if you're out with COVID, that your days that you have to quarantine should be covered. by this school board.
Well, okay. So I'm going to address that. Of course, the board can decide if they want to do it, but the money for this is not any money that the state is giving us or the superintendent is, or the board is receiving from any outside source. It is out of your local money. Now, I want to caution you that even though Mr. Watts talks about the money that's there now, I want to caution you and remind you that at one point we were way below. You know, we talk about lots of things related to MPS, and I want to remind you that MPS was in dire straits. I know there was a survey done about leadership. You know, in the last 4.5 years, this board has done some incredible work. Bus safety, keeping your accreditation, getting your finances where it needs to be, working to get to the ad valorem, and coming from under intervention. Those things did not happen accidentally. Now, it's like any savings account. You can get it up and then you can start spending too soon and you'll be right back where you started. So that is a compromise that I'm recommending or suggesting might be considered. I know we all have our own opinion. As a board member, you have yours. As the superintendent, I'm just here to make sure that we put it on the table so that everybody understands what that means. So
I have a
And I understand where you're coming from, and I think Mr. Watts hung the moon. I mean, he wears a cape, in my opinion. However, none of us knew what was going to happen 19 months ago. And so, you know, we have to, like everybody else and every other business, we can't compare anything to the last 19 months. And we have to be able to give a little more and make some exceptions. And hearing people that, you know, have kids that, you know, they're not getting paid and it's because we're not extending this. And, you know, I just don't think there should be a cap on it. And I think this board has some hard things to consider, but we're going to have to do better than this.
Okay, I have a comment. With the guidelines put in place with ensuring medical documentation, that's safeguarding if there's any fear or speculation that there would be, you know, fraudulent use of the time. So I, in my heart, do not believe that someone with these stipulations in place would jeopardize, and I'm not going to call it a gift, I'm going to call it an investment in the employees of MPS. And we have to be willing to invest in those that deliver what our employees, not just teachers, but employees throughout the system. And I do know that MPS was hit very hard, and there are probably still cases out there. So I personally made a proposal, and I'm making a proposal now, that we go from August 1st through December 31st, because I think that in the last meeting, if I remember correctly, there was going to be reconsideration at the end of the proposed time anyway. So that's all that I have to say. I think that we need to invest in our employees.
okay. So my last comment, and I feel obligated to say this, is that there has to be a cap on when it ends and some consideration about when it starts. Here's why I'm saying this. You may be prepared that in January, if someone misses the December 31st cutoff date, and in January they have an issue with COVID, that you will probably be asked again to reconsider. So even though hello, excuse me, my turn. Even though I understand how you're feeling, and I mean, I'm just the person who makes suggestions and recommendations. I do understand that. However, I want you to be aware that as we did with one other situation, where some reconsideration was made, that in January, I think it was when we paid supplements back when, we gave additional money, that some people had retired before that date, and so you went back and you had to reconsider, or you did reconsider. I get that, I really do. But I do also want to say to you as a board that you need to be prepared that in January, somebody who missed the December 31 date and on January 1 had an issue, that you will probably be asked again to make some reconsiderations. And I understand that, so.
And I have to say this too, we can't put a cap on COVID. I mean,
You
so I
can't
don't
put
see
a
how
cap
you can
on
put a
COVID.
cap on sick leave.
But you've got to put a cap on, and I hate to be the money person, but you have to have a cap. You know, when I was in business, nobody was supplementing me when I was giving COVID pay, and I did as long as I could. I think the compromise that we really should consider is going retroactively to August and going through November 30th, then addressing it again on November 30th and seeing if because in reality, COVID rates are going down, and hopefully they will go away, you know. But I think if we go retroactive, it answers so many questions out here, and my heart is out there with the teachers. I really get this. To go retroactive and
to August and go through December 31st.
well, there's the money issue because there's nothing.
But there was going to be reconsideration anyway. That is what the original proposal had, to go through December 31st and with the caveat to reconsider. So now you're saying from August the 1st through November the 30th and reconsider at November the 30th.
Yeah.
It's the same logic.
Well, it's
What about when the teachers, when everybody goes home over those 2 weeks? I think that we're not being wise in thinking about that come December 31st or the 1st of January, when people come back after being around each other, that we are going to see an increase. And
where
so,
are we going to fund it? How are we going to fund it? That's the question. The federal government helped for a long time, and then they put a cap on it, and that was the end of that too, with monies to businesses. It's, you know, you got to be able to pay for it.
businesses, but we're talking about teachers who we are sitting here saying that this is our future and we want to invest everything into the schools. The schools are the teachers. I mean, that's who's going to be there for our children. And so if we're not paying them and they get sick and they come to school sick, because that's what happens when you are not getting paid, you end up coming to school sick. And so is that the message that we're sending? Is that, I'm sorry, but we can afford other stuff, but not to pay you when you're sick?
We're not sending that message. We're not sending that message at all.
I have a question.
Right now, I'm feeling like we need to go back and catch these August people. That to me is really important because it's important to them.
I have a question. I have a question.
That's the point about the January 1st, because still, it's going to be a cycle of what about the January, what about the February? And you do have to put a cap on it.
I have a question. Have we exhausted all funds that could possibly be used to help the situation out? I mean, I guess Mr. Watts is the only one that can answer that question.
I would have to research that with Mr. Watts, but I don't think there's, let me say it this way, there is no allocation for this.
No, not allocation, but I know that certain funds were given and guidelines around the use of those funds. Are there any funds available that could be used to assist in this situation? Because I know that some funds are being used for repairs on schools. So are some of those funds that we've been delaying repairs on and we are slowing down with the supply chain and getting materials? Is there any way that any of those funds could be transferred over to assist with the situation at hand? That's my only question.
All right,
Either there is or there's not.
There is not on funds that are allocated for buildings.
So you're saying that we don't have any funds that could be
No, I'm saying
utilized for that?
you can't take money away from allocated for buildings, cannot be
No,
taken.
no. I'm talking about the federal funds that were sent, not MPS funds. I want to make that clear. So,
Dr. Moore has already said that she's willing to research that, so for us to say the money's not there would be premature, because she's already said that she's willing to research it. And to be very honest, at the previous meeting, we did request that we look into it, and I'm happy that you're taking us up on that. And thank you, teachers and staff, for coming out, because that puts a face to the request that we've made for this reconsideration. I think it's vitally important that I think my statement last month was that we be fair. If people are getting sick in October and November, and September and October, and those who got sick in August are not being taken care of, there's no fairness in that. And I guess the reason we're using the December 31st date is because it's a calendar date for the end of a payroll. But to be honest, as of December 17th, we don't have to worry about teachers using leave. They're not going to need leave between the 18th and the 31st. So we're only talking about a 2-week window of the possibility of someone else getting sick. We hope and pray that they will be safe and that they won't get sick. But those who have already suffered deserve at least an opportunity to be compensated and taken care of.
I'm in agreement with the changing of the dates from August to December, but we do want to make sure that we are frugal. We want to make sure that we're taking care of our teachers. So let's make sure that, let's let Dr. Moore do the research and make sure that we're being frugal with the funds, but as Dr. Coleman said, being fair to our teachers because they deserve the best. Let's do the research.
Okay. Dr. Moore, it's up to you on that. And it's up to you to consent agenda.
All righty, thank you. Consent agenda. Before we get all the way into it, there's one thing I want to tell you because this is part of the consent agenda. On your ballot for director, 2 candidates received 1 vote each, and Claire received 3 as a director on the ballot. So when we come to that part on the consent agenda, here's what the tally says. Okay, now moving right along. I recommend approval of the consent agenda.
Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor with a show of hands? Okay, Dr. Moore?
All right. Next, we will have consider for approval. I recommend approval of the personnel report, certified personnel.
I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation for the personnel report, certified personnel. I second.
Any discussion? Show of hands. And that's unanimous.
Next, I recommend approval of the personnel report, classified personnel.
I move for the approval of the recommendation for personnel report, classified personnel.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor with a show of hands? Unanimous.
Next, I recommend approval of the personnel report, certified teams.
I move that we receive the superintendent's recommendation for personnel report, certified teams. I second.
Any discussion? All in favor with a show of hands? That's unanimous. Our next meeting is November 9th. We'll have a work session at 5, followed immediately by a board meeting, and we are adjourned.